Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Shaheen Ghadir with the Fertile Life podcast. Today, I am very excited to present that I am going to be talking to Violet Benson. For those of you who do not know who Violet Benson is, which is probably going to be very hard, she is the internet persona that does daddy issues. And welcome, Violet. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm well, thanks.
Wonderful. I like to always have my guests introduce themselves because I notice when they introduce themselves, they talk about things and tell everyone something interesting that maybe I didn't introduce them. So let me give this opportunity to you to introduce yourself to everyone who's listening who may not know everything about you.
Okay. Do you guys have 10 hours? I'm kidding.
We have about 8. We're
Hi.
gonna have to make it a little shorter.
Okay. I'm Violet Benson. Most people know me as Daddyissues, which I started that account 7 years ago. I also have a podcast called Too Tired to Be Crazy, where I touch on mental health and female empowerment and just actually for men and female. And then Daddy Issues is more about just sexual joke, dating and relationships. I also have a merch line on shopdaddyissues.com. And I've been really getting into NFTs. Shout out to Cool Cats or anyone that owns one. And soon I'll have my own collection too.
Wow. Wow. You are busy. How do you manage all of that? I got tired kind of just taking notes on what it was.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm still trying to figure it out.
So one of the things I definitely want to touch about is, I love the fact that you're talking a lot about relationships and dating. As a fertility specialist here in LA, I find it, and I hear this a lot from young women who are probably the biggest audience that you have, that it's a really hard city to meet good guys. And for that reason, we're promoting people freezing their eggs and trying to save their fertility for the future. I'm very curious if you could just kind of I want to talk a little bit about the advice that you give women like yourself, younger women. Let's talk about that for a second.
I always say, is rich, don't use protection. Just kidding.
Okay, there's a little static. I want to make sure everyone heard that. He is rich, do not use protection were the words that
I'm kidding. Yeah, it's been weird. It is, times have changed. I think dating specifically is so different these days. Just because there's more options, or people are just not working on their mental health as much, or maybe it's because times have changed and now there's always feels like so much is happening. I think more with having access to everything, and people always think there's more options. I don't know. I think it's definitely, the generation is different than it was for my parents. So people are having kids later on in life. I would say when my mom had me at 29, that was considered super late. Like, you're supposed to have it, like in Russia, by 20 years old, if you're not a wife with kids, like you're a failure, and you're gonna be a, what is it, Russian bride or American bride, like, for sale. So it's completely, and I actually have a friend right now who's 34 and she's freezing her eggs, and it's something. I just turned 33 last week, and my dad, I know I don't look at it, God bless, really good Russian genes. And my dad, I saw him on my birthday, and he asked me if he was going to freeze my eggs. So, because he said, if you're so beautiful and smart, he was like, you should have kids. Like, there should be continuous to you. Reconsider freezing your eggs. And that's something I never thought I would ever have to think about. I mean, even that conversation makes me uncomfortable because it's so close to home.
It makes all of my patients uncomfortable. No one wants to remember, like, oh, my goal was to be married at 25 and have kids at 27. And I mean, it's hard, but you're a very smart woman. So are a lot of my patients, and many of them have careers, and many of them have been very successful. And I know that, I'm not saying our parents didn't, but it was a different world. Like when our parents were having us, and my parents, like you said, 29 was probably old. My mom had me in her early 20s. And that's kind of how it was typical before. But right now, I think at the age of 30 I kind of tell every single woman that I run into, if you're 30 years old and you don't have clear plan of having a kid really soon, you got to think about the future. And also, if you're thinking about having like 2, 3, 4 kids, if you're 30 years old, you got to think about the future because it gets harder as you get older. So I think 33 is great. I think your dad's idea is fantastic. We can talk about that off this show as well, or we could talk about it here if you want. But I think absolutely, you're a smart, beautiful, young 33-year-old that should be preserving her eggs. So if she meets Mr. Right at 38 or 36 and doesn't want to have kids till 38, let's say, you're going to have the opportunity to still have your 2-3 kids that you want to have or more.
Yeah. I mean, if I don't find Mr. Right by 38, I would probably give up by then and just go on with my life feeling like it's not for me.
No, I don't want you to, I don't think that's the right way to think about this. I think the right way to think about it is that, you know what? Everyone's on a different timeline. You can't settle to have a kid. And to be honest, I've even had patients come have kids alone. I mean, they don't necessarily that I've had patients tell me, I'm not waiting for Mr. Right anymore. And I'm ready to have a kid and I'm ready to be a mom. I'm not saying that's right or wrong for you, but something very interesting to think about.
Yeah, 100%. But
yeah,
I heard it's really painful to freeze your eggs.
It is not. So it is not very painful to freeze your eggs. I want to put that myth to bed right now. It involves calling us when you get your period, coming in and doing blood work and ultrasound on day 2, 3, or 4 of your cycle, and then usually going on a birth control pill for a week or 2 to stop your natural ovulation. And then it's tiny little injections. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen what's called an insulin syringe. It's like a tiny little needle that goes on it. And that it's about 10 to 12 days of these tiny little injections that go into your belly. You barely feel them. And you come in for about 3 or 4 ultrasounds and your eggs are ready to come out. The eggs come out under a light anesthetic. You are completely asleep and you don't feel anything that's going on at that time. You wake up and it's done. Now, if you make a lot of eggs, you're going to feel bloated. Like the week afterwards, you're going to feel bloated. And it takes about a week kind of to recover back to completely normal. But there's no part of it that's really painful. So when people say that, like either they went to a doctor that didn't give them anesthesia, which is crazy, but it's really not really painful. And I want to make sure that people like yourself, smart, who know a lot of people, are giving right advice out to others.
What about people, someone like me who's been on birth control since I was 18?
So it really does not do much. What we recommend to people that have been on birth control for a really long time is to come off for a month or 2 before you do this. So your own hormones kind of come back to life. When your own hormones just kind of come back to life, I think you do better. Sometimes your ovary goes into like a really deep sleep and it's hard to wake them up if you go right into the injections. So we like to give people like a month, 2 months, 3 months off their own birth control before they can start doing this. I think it allows their own body to take over and do better.
One time I tried to get off birth control and it made like I'm on it for like hormone balance or something like that. So it was really difficult for me. And not only my moods it felt a lot of up and down, plus like as I just got off, but like I had weight gain, I had random acne suddenly come to life as an adult. And then I felt like my hormones were like all over the place. That happened to me once and then I got back on it, but it's also the same time as when I stopped taking Adderall. But then another time, my healthcare insurance changed my birth control without me knowing. And that also really messed things up because my body, like they changed the dosage and my body like reacted. And so I've actually been weirdly scared to get off birth control.
I don't think you need to be. Most people who get the injections, their estrogen levels go up as they're making a lot of eggs and they actually feel really good. So I have had patients tell me like, I felt so good. You know, afterwards I felt bloated. I was a little uncomfortable. I was a little bit nauseous or whatever it may be. But the actual part of the injections, it's almost the same as birth control. Birth control is like an estrogen pill and it keeps you from ovulating. The injections are that on like steroids.
I've always wanted to do, like I've always said that I want twins. I don't have twins in my family. And especially as I'm getting older, I've always I believe in all the natural stuff, but I've always wanted those injections where they can help you get twins. Is that the same as, or is that similar with freezing your eggs and then being able to give you multiple kids at once? Kind of speeding up the process?
So I have 4 kids. My middle 2 are from IVF and they're twins.
Yeah.
And they're almost 10 years old. My wife and I had a little bump in the road after my first kid was born. We had a miscarriage and didn't get pregnant for a while. So we decided after 2 years, okay, we're just going to do IVF, and we put 2 embryos back. So let's say you freeze a bunch of eggs right now and you meet Mr. Right. You put his sperm with all of those eggs, and then you make embryos. We do genetic testing on those embryos. So I'll tell you, Violet, number 1 is a normal male. Number 2 is a normal female. Number 3 is Down syndrome. Number 4 is chromosomal abnormal. But 5, 6, and 7 are normal as well. So we can take 2. We never take more. But if you are in good health and you're aware of all the risks that come along with twins, like preterm labor or just having to be on like bed rest and things like that, we're happy to put 2 in. Most healthy women like yourself do very well with twins. And the chance of each one of them taking is almost 76 to 84%. So it's really high. Those are our statistics for our office. But yes, that's how you do it. You put 2 embryos back, and that's how you're going to have a higher chance of having twins.
Got it. But the women who normally have IVF, it's a lot of the time it's because they can't have.
It's mixed. It's mixed. We have a lot of young couples that come in and say, we don't want to have kids now, so we want to preserve things for the future. I have people that freeze their eggs and then they come back to use them later, so they have embryos to use as well. And we have some people that come in because they want to pick the gender, because they may have 3 girls and they want now a boy, or vice versa. Or it's just people that are having difficulties getting pregnant. And most of our patients, I'll be honest, like to put 1 embryo back at a time. About 90% of our patients probably just put 1 at a time. And we have another maybe 10% of people that want to put 2 embryos back. Trying to go.
Got it. I feel like one thing that a lot of women in general we get scared of, including myself, is that fear of that biologically you're not able to have a child. It's always like every girl at one point in her life had a guy accidentally come in her, and then she didn't get pregnant. Like, she was freaked out, but then she didn't get pregnant from it. And then she's like, oh my God, I'm probably barren. And I feel like it's like a fear that every woman has. And the older she gets, the fear kind of is in the back of your head even more. So I think that's another reason why even people like me get scared to even think of freezing your eggs, because then you have to come with the reality that that is a possibility that you could potentially be barren. And that's really scary. Like, for me, at least, because I do believe, like, I do want to have my own kids for my body. Not that there's anything wrong if you can't, but I'm just saying biologically is what I want.
So I think it's very true and very real that as women get older, this fear of not being able to reproduce and the biology of a female body is something that is scary to know that you're aging and you're not able to do what your body was kind of made to do for a while. So I think that's definitely true. However, I also think that there's science and things that people can do to make sure that they're protecting themselves, like freezing the eggs and doing that. Just because a woman doesn't get pregnant, the healthiest 20-year-old, guess what? I want to ask you a question. I love this. What do you think is the percentage, the average chance of getting pregnant if you're 20 years old and you had sex on the exact right day to get pregnant? What is your chance of getting pregnant that month? For a healthy
40%?
guy. How much?
40%?
40? It's 20,
yeah.
25%. So women are at their...
Well, you should be my best friend. Real fast.
Well, she's on the... We should have her on the next episode, okay? So women that are 20 to 26 years old, that's the peak fertility. And peak fertility for human women is 20 to 25% per month. So if you're getting pregnant more than that, then you're doing really well.
Well, I can't even get pregnant right now on birth control.
Right. But I'm just saying if you're not on birth control.
Okay. Got it. So when someone comes to you guys to freeze the eggs, they will then be able to be tested to even see if they have any good, healthy eggs.
Well, you can't know if your egg is healthy yet until you make an embryo. So we have to take the sperm and the egg and put it together. And then you know if it's genetically normal or not. So that's why when a woman like yourself may come and freeze their eggs in my office, I always tell them the more eggs you get, the better. So it's not that we don't want to get just 5 eggs. We want to get the more, the better, because you never know. I've had people make 2 eggs and got 2 kids out of it. And I also had people that made many more, like 29 eggs, and she didn't get pregnant because her eggs weren't the best quality.
So you're saying someone can come in, because it's not cheap to freeze your eggs. Wait, I feel like I'm interviewing you. I actually feel really bad. Sorry. Like, I just realized I'm interviewing.
I don't mind this at all. This is I want your voice, and I want my expertise to help women in the future.
Okay, wait. So, because freezing your eggs is expensive. So you're saying that women can literally.
How much do you think it is?
20,000.
So we have a special that went on that brought it down to $6,400. Okay. The medications are separate. Some people's insurance pays for the medication. Some people's doesn't. Some people's pays for all of it. If you work at Netflix or Google or Disney, Snapchat, Apple, they all have $75,000 of coverage, those ladies.
Wow.
And a lot of them don't even take advantage of it. And we also have financing options that you're able to get it down to like $100 and something a month. So if you can't pay, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, a regular price, I think ranges a little bit higher than $6,400, but that was a special that we had. We're having a special that I'm actually loving. If you come with one of your friends, so 2 people do it together right now, there's a 15% off discount. If you come 3 friends, you get 20% off, which I think is phenomenal, because not only do you get to do it with a friend of yours so you don't feel alone, you also get a great discount.
This sounds really exciting. Wait, but so you can pay that money, but I've done sponsorships before for my podcast. I have to do fertility stuff, and I remember they sent free of charge. They sent a test to my house where it's some test you can take to see how fertile you are. Obviously, I was too freaked out to do that because I'm too scared to know the truth. So I never took advantage of the test. But shouldn't then people take those tests before they spend the money to freeze their eggs if they're actually not fertile?
So anyone who does a consultation with me interested in doing that, 100% is going to come in and do diagnostic testing first. Now, they do have the home kits that they sent you. They're not the best, but it's better than nothing. But anyone who's going to start, I first do all the testing and tell them, I think you're going to do really well. You may not make a lot, but my advice is a few eggs is better than no eggs. You never know. What if in your few eggs, the golden egg that's going to make your beautiful child is in it? You never know that. So that's why I think it's really important.
Okay, last question, and then you can interview me. So women can basically carry a baby at any age. The reason a lot of women can't is because their eggs dry out. So if you take out the eggs, then literally if a woman wants to carry a baby like 42, that's how she can.
So
like the bodies are able to carry a baby.
The uterus, which is the organ that carries the baby, can function and hold the baby and grow a baby, to be honest, until you die. Okay. That's why you hear about like these 60-year-old woman carries a baby for her daughter and things like that. You can wake up the uterus. You give the uterus some estrogen hormone, the uterus wakes up, you're going to get a period, and the lining gets thick and it can implant an embryo. The egg, which comes from the ovaries age and the eggs run out, and you never make eggs again. So you're born with all the eggs you have, and they run out. So that's why a 42-year-old, a 44-year-old, a 45-year-old, they have a really hard time getting pregnant because their eggs have run out. And they don't have any more great eggs. And by the time you get to average age of 51 for menopause, most women have no more eggs left. But the uterus, that makes sense. So that's why we have like 45-year-old women that come and use an egg donor, an egg of like a young, like 22-year-old girl, for example, and they can get pregnant and their success rates are really high. Those eggs are really healthy.
For 30-year-old women, like do they still have really good uteruses? Ovaries?
So most 30-year-olds have very good uterus, and most 30-year-olds still have very good eggs.
Cool. But I mean,
I don't think you were expecting this much emotion in this podcast today, were you?
no, I'm a pretty emotional person. So I actually have a lot of my face shows all my reactions. I don't hide them.
I'm kind of like that too.
Okay, now you can interview me. Go ahead.
So how are you, Violet? How are you doing today?
Good. Just have some work to do today, a lot actually, but I am happy I got to talk to you so far. I mean, this has been like have been questions that I've been avoiding for so long and answers. So it's kind of nice that I was able to actually know the answers now. It feels less scary.
Let's talk a little bit about your podcast and how you kind of talk about mental health and all of those things, because I think that is such an important thing. And I try to make sure I address to some extent or another all of my patients' mental health, their emotional well-being, because I find that to be really important for a young woman, especially when they're thinking about their eggs and their fertility and relationships and all of that. Let's talk about what made you want to do that, by the way?
I think a lot of people have similar stories to me in a way where a lot of times when you don't grow up with something specific, sometimes it tends to become the pursuit of your life's work. I think for me, because I grew up with one of my parents being a bit absent, not having the emotional love that I was seeking. Obviously, as an adult now, I completely understand there are different love languages, and I'm not about, you know, blaming people for anything. I understand now as an adult, like obviously as a child, I needed touch and I needed words of affirmation, things like that. My father was showing his love differently with acts of service. And as a child, you don't understand those type of things, what's happening. So because I didn't get to grow up with that type of love, then as an adult, when I finally realized that I can be the change I want to see my family, and I started working on changing my family's dynamic by having us hug more and constantly say to each other, I love you, because my father and I didn't say until I was 24 when I started doing that, all thanks to when I created Daddyissues. It really helped me find myself. The followers really helped me find myself. But after that, yes, I was posting jokes and things like that because Daddyissues was my alter ego. But eventually, because first Daddyissues, when I created Daddyissues, it was this cool girl that I could never be like her. And she was so much cooler than me. She was so much better than me. And she was so confident. And I could never be like that. I was an accountant, very depressed in my firm because the women in my work were making my life miserable. And there was no escape. And my escape was creating this account and pretending to be dreaming of being this girl. And then the more I continued running that account, the more I realized that I'm not alone, because a lot of people experience the jokes that I'm writing and posting. And it started to make me feel like I started to become Daddyissues. And then as I continued to grow up, I outgrew Daddyissues again. I started to work on myself. I started to learn how to love myself. I started to care more about my surroundings and better understand people's emotions. And she became my alter ego again. And when Daddyissues became alter ego again, it's kind of around when I started my podcast, Too Tired to Be Crazy. And I started to think more about mental health, because I think people focus so much on our physical health, and we don't realize that our physical health really does depend on our emotional health and our mental health. And I know this from experience, because a lot of times when I would keep myself from dealing with my emotions, I would get physically sick. And I still do. When I don't talk about my feelings, I just keep it to myself, pretend everything's fine. My immune system goes really low and I start to get allergies, and then I get super sick. And that's when I'm like, oh shit, I need to do something about this. And I know it always starts with how I feel about myself inside. People just don't realize that the same way, if you fall and break your foot and you have to then sit back in your house for 3 weeks and not do any more exercises until your foot's better, it's the same thing with your broken heart. It's the same thing with your mental health. If you're going through stuff, you have to sometimes take a step back and take care of yourself. And when you take care of yourself emotionally and mentally, then you're going to be healthier physically.
The fact that the major theme of the podcast is female empowerment and self-love advice, I absolutely love. I think there's something missing in this world right now, loving yourself is, it's hard to love others and to love the world around us if we don't love ourselves. And I think there's so much hatred and violence and theft and all these things that are happening, especially in LA, which has changed so much in the last 2 years. And I'm so sad to say that, because there's like a lack of self-love out there. What is the best advice you give to someone that you think may not be loving themselves well?
Well, I think what you project onto others is what you project on yourself. So I think it's, if you want kindness, you have to give it first. And if you want love, then you have to be loved. And it sounds so, trust me, when I get in my moods and someone's like, just smile. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. You know what I mean? Because it's annoying. It's like, shut up. You're so annoying. But really, it's the truth. Like, you can't expect people to give you love if you can't give love back. You can't expect people to be kind to you if you're not giving that to the universe. And the sad truth is that nothing brings people together faster than hate. It's so much easier to hate other people. But the wild thing is that the one universal thing that everyone in this lifetime wants is to be understood. As much as people pretend like they don't care what other people think, they don't care to be understood, it's a lie. Everyone seeks to be understood. Everyone has those moments when they're like, no one gets me, blah, blah, and they want to be understood. Yet we completely don't give other people a chance, and we completely write people off really fast, and we completely misunderstand other people. And it's like, why would you do that if you so desperately want to be understood? Why not take a second and be like, you know what? Maybe this person is hurting. You know what? If this person's being kind of mean to me, maybe they're having a shit day, and maybe I should just ask, hey, are you doing okay? And then maybe this will change the dialogue today, and then they'll have a good day. So then I'll have a good day. There's been so many moments where I'm having the worst day, and I force myself to not ruin someone else's day. And I say, I'll just be nice, or I'll listen to someone else's problems. And the minute I make someone else feel better in a weird way, it makes me feel better. So.
I love that. That was so well said. That was so well said. And I wish so many more people thought like that. I can't wait to listen to your podcast, by the way. It sounds like I love the fact that, a lot of my career has been there to help women and to empower women, to be able to allow them to go after their careers, not worry about their fertility, promising them that I can do something in the future and allowing them to take over. And I think by doing that, it's really let me have a special relationship with people, with couples, having a big say and a big stake in people's lives. And when it comes to do with family building has been a gift that I've been given. And it's made a huge difference in my life. And I can't tell you, like you just said, when you do good for others, how it makes you feel yourself. I have a very selfish job. Like, it makes me feel so good about what I do. But we are going to talk about one of these days privately what we're going to do to help you, so you don't have to be worried. And I think that addressing it is going to be smart. And I think you're going to be very happy once you've done that. And we can talk about that.
Wait, can I get back on birth control after I finish?
Yeah, right afterwards. Absolutely. Within like a week or two, you're going to get a period, and then you go right back on the birth control.
Oh, cool. That sounds good.
Yes, it does. It does. Well, this was so fun. I could just continue to talk. You said we had 10 hours to talk about your life, but I really want to thank you so much. It was wonderful meeting you. Wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And I have a feeling somehow that we're going to be in touch, and we're going to know each other for a while.
Oh God. Yeah, no, sounds good. Yeah. Ugh, I hate being a woman. Just kidding. Sorry. Don't need to say that.
So for, again, everyone, I think is, you give a great plug-in. If you want to kind of just let us know one more time, I'm going to do it for you. So Violet Benson can be found on Instagram, and her online alias and persona is Daddyissues, and I think it's Daddyissues_.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for joining me here on the Fertile. Oh, and the podcast. Don't forget, it's Too Tired to Be Crazy. And it's on Thursdays, and it comes out every Thursday, and it talks about female empowerment and self-love advice, and everyone needs to love themselves. And that is one great thing. So is there any other thing that you want to remind people to follow? Oh, your merch. I gotta go see the merch. Nah, not right now. Okay, these are more important things.
All right, now I'm revamping things with the merge, so I'm a little less. That's the truth. I shouldn't say out loud. I'm changing teams, so I'm a little less excited about it until next year. But I will have a subscription soon for all. I call like the listeners of Too Tired to Be Crazy baddies, and just in general my followers. So I'm gonna have a community soon, like baddie club. So to like empower women more. So a lot more videos and a lot more fun stuff. So that I am excited. It's like a subscription thing.
That sounds amazing. Well, thank you again for joining me here on The Fertile Life. And thank you everybody for listening. Until the next episode, take care.
Bye.